All right, now the moment you've all been waiting for. Wow, you seem a little tentative here. All right, we're going to do report backs. So if you were the designated person for your group to do the quick 3-minute report back, I'm going to be right here to take the microphone right out of your hand. No stress. I'm kidding. We're going to have a good time, okay? I'm not asking you to sing. If you're the designated person, go up to the chart and stand in front of your chart. No one will bite you. I will protect you. I downloaded Kung Fu just now. I can fly helicopters now, too. All right, so what I'd like for you to do, designees, all right, I would like for you to state the question that you are answering and report on the report back. What were the key takeaways that people should have in response to that question, acknowledging that you're applying your experience and expertise of your group? All right? All right, come on up, Phil.
So I'm going to have to refer back to my board over here. So is it okay if I step over here to go over it? All right, great.
Oh, yeah. Here, I got an idea. Let's do this.
Yeah, why don't you put it up on the banner? Awesome, thank you. All right, so we covered cloud operations, and our question was switching from a legacy ops to cloud ops and how to go about doing it. So some of the answers we came up with, we sort of broke it down into 3 steps. I think that was a requirement. So keep the existing system alive on cloud, right? So we're keeping the lights on in our organization, keeping the business moving. That was number 1 priority for us. Number 2 was identify the toil areas of areas that we can automate, right? So we want to redirect our resources out of that automation process, and those redirected resources move us into step 3, which was to identify and enumerate the steps to refactor our applications for cloud-native configurations, right? So we want to gain the benefits of moving to the cloud operating model. So we're looking at doing 80% of our work was going to focus on new features, 20% on refactoring the application, and we're going to apply all those redirected resources to that endeavor. That's it.
Excellent. That was 1 minute, by the way, just over. All right. All right, and each of you, if you'll bring your sheet up, and we'll hand you the mic, I'll hold your sheet.
Hi, I'm Scott, and we had security, and our first question was AWS security certification. So our answer to that was there's vendor agnostic certifications such as CompTIA, Cloud Plus, IC Squared, CCSP, Cloud Security by SANS, GIAC. And then there's vendor-specific ones like Microsoft or Cisco Cloud. And then since the question was about AWS, there is a AWS security certification that came out in April of this year. Some of the reasons that using that is hiring, architectural support, SDLC identity, and deployments to give a proactive approach to that. And then our second question was about cloud security in general. So we didn't understand if you wanted to know the issues of cloud security or ways to defend it, so we answered both. We picked the 10 top issues that are a problem to cloud security, such as data breaches, hijacking accounts, insecure APIs, etc. And then what we did is we thought the way to answer that is there's 2 different things you could do, OWASP, and then there's CIS benchmark top 20 security controls. And then for tools that you could use to help you with that, there's cloud access security brokers. A lot of the vendors are BMC, IBM, F5, Symantec, Barracuda, McAfee, and then there's other vendors that will do it for you, such as Akamai, and that's what we have.
Excellent. Fantastic. If you put that back for me. See? Totally painless. All right. I will take that.
All right, I'm Paul. So we talked about containers. I would point out the fact that there were many questions here on containers, probably more than any other topic. And so we had a lot of good, these answers provided here by Andrew Sullivan. So very knowledgeable about containers. I would encourage everyone to come up and take a look at the answers that he provided, spend a lot of time doing, because they certainly didn't come from me. But so I would encourage everyone to do that. So what we looked at was what are some tools for keeping containers current and secure. So what Andrew kind of talked through was that container build system kind of innately handles this, that the images are based upon layers, so that when you patch the underlying layer, the images based on top of that are patched as well. So some of the tools that when you have an image, you could keep it in Artifactory or Sonatype Nexus or something like that for those images. You can invite other people into this process. I think that's kind of one of the great things about containers that really goes in line with this NewOps talks is you can include other groups into it. So the app dev group, they can push their application on these new baselines. Security can be involved in patching and providing those baselines as well. And actually, Ken from the Cloud Operations Table was talking about how his group, every 30 days, they put a new baseline out of that's patched. And so the app dev team is responsible for rolling out those new changes. So you're inviting a lot of different groups into this new technology process. So that's what we talked about.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. Starting to think I was generous with 3 minutes. This is great.
All right, so our group talked about tooling adoption, and a few of the questions were around treating infrastructure as code and Splunk, interestingly enough. So to start off answering the question in and around infrastructure as code and the tooling involved in that is if you're going to start adopting tooling in and around it, start small. Start with configurations, just small things that can go a long way. We find a lot of issues in the infrastructure that stem just from configuration changes going wrong or inconsistencies across the environment. There are a couple of tools in and around that using Puppet and Chef and things like Ansible, and all of these things, all of these automation tools you can use just by writing YAML, and that is something that is supremely optimized for that job, and you can keep all of that easily in service or revision control. And so when you also treat infrastructure as code and you keep it in revision control, you can easily find when things change, who changed it when, and easily implement things like continuous deployment and integration and testing, so you can catch a lot of issues before you hit production. So moving on to the Splunk questions and how to adopt Splunk tooling. So if you just start simply by using it as log aggregation, it helps your security folks out a lot. They already have tooling in and around that sometimes, but your admins don't really get to spend a lot of time around log aggregation and have to jump around systems to find all that. And when you do that, you can easily find patterns in your infrastructure and find new and beautiful errors that you can solve. But why use it? Well, you can set lots of hooks to easily automate things that your on-call support team would generally fix in the middle of the night. And reducing those types of small errors means they get more sleep and spend more time either sleeping or doing real work. And so they're not having to put out a lot of meaningless fires. And you are inadvertently increasing your uptime just because you can fix all the small things before anybody else needs to get involved. And those were our topics.
Awesome. Thank you. I'd like full disclosure in that no Splunk employee put that on there, nor did we sponsor that response. All right.
We've got career development and we've got career development, and neither of us do public speaking, so we're working outside of our comfort zone, which is one of our things, so we're practicing what we preach.
Okay, so one of the first things, my name's Laverne Witherspoon, by the way. I have a background in software engineering and trying to learn DevOps, so that's why I'm here today. One of the first things we came up with was, should I practice interviewing within my own company? And here we had a couple examples where you can maybe talk to your manager and talk to him about what your next steps are in your career and what you feel comfortable doing. If you're not comfortable with talking to your manager, you should still try to network within your own company and talk to other people who do the kind of work that you'd like to do. We had several examples from our table where people had practiced that. The second thing was to, again, try networking externally in other groups, all your LinkedIn, social media that we all know to do, but just getting out there and join and talking to other people was a way to find out how people are working in the career that you want to do next, those kinds of things.
Okay, and then the other two items we grouped together. They were how to rebrand or reinvent ourselves and how to build a generalist skill set. So there were a whole bunch of things we had here. Work outside your comfort zone. Know that perfection is not a requirement. You just need to get started. You need to build and understand, build a long-term roadmap for how you want to accomplish your goals. And understanding the business plan can help you as well. Know that there are no small roles. Learn to thrive on uncertainty. Be humble, accept that you don't know everything. We also have learning the business, which goes along with the understanding the business plan. Work on technical communication skills. Work on interpersonal skills. Possibly obtain a certification. Knowing when you need to change is a big one. And also networking, which she covered earlier.
Excellent. Great job, Joe and Laverne. I highly support the get out of your comfort zone. See? It's awesome. Everybody was rooting for you. You did great. All right. Is this the last one?
Yep.
Awesome.
Do we get extra time?
No. All right, here. I'll get out of the way.
All right. All right. We decided we were going to have our whole team come, all three of us. So thanks, guys. Jim and RJ. Our domain was data and analytics. And that's a very broad domain and also a very fragmented domain, and that's somewhat going to be reflected by our answers as they are. So we sort of deferred on these two questions. These were Splunk dev environments or Splunk sandboxes and automation. I think the thing to be said there is those are perfect use cases for DevOps principles, and a lot of the points that have been made throughout the day today absolutely apply to those. And so we'll just suffice to say you absolutely need a tool like Splunk or some other tool to visualize and to harvest meaningful information out of the data that your systems are generating and to perform things like logging and alerting, things like that. That's a no-brainer. So, as for technical how-to, this group didn't have that to offer, so that's all we had to say about that. But the topic that we found we had a lot more conversation to talk about was sort of, I think, the higher-level topic where, and this was actually Jim's question, in which he's asking about transforming data to information, to knowledge, to insight, to wisdom. And I thought that just, the question itself is so insightful in the way he's spelling out the hierarchy between data as sort of a medium, raw, bits and bytes, and matriculating that up through human constructs that can be used essentially for decision-making, for awareness, for knowledge, for predicting things, for knowing the future, really powerful things. And so we sort of spitballed a list of issues that touched, some related, some not. But I think the narrative that emerged out of our conversation was really that more so than any sort of raw technical tool or process, the number one thing that organizations need is to understand what questions you're trying to answer, what business problems are you trying to address, and to figure out how to design and frame those problems. And before any some management level person or some leader comes and says, I read in Harvard Business Review that we need to be doing data science. So, Mr. or Ms. DBA, you need to turn into a data scientist. And that's a big problem. And yet I think that kind of thing happens all the time. And I think we all had that sense that kind of thing happens all the time. So how can you counter that sort of anti-pattern? And we felt like it was really by investing early and often in articulating what does a true enterprise data model look like? What does a data life cycle look like? What are you trying to do before you start delving into the weeds of all the technologies and tools and sort of integrating those things? Because that can be a really heavyweight process, and you want to be thoughtful by investing early in sort of the proper design and the proper understanding. And a lot of times the people who are making those decisions are outside of IT altogether. So it's a perfect NewOps use case. That's what I've got. I know I rambled a little bit, but that was my time. Sorry, guys. Thank y'all. Thanks, Josh.
Absolutely. All right, so at this point, if Damon or Jane have any closing remarks they would make, have them come up front. If not, I got this. Either way, we're good. Did everybody learn something today? Yeah? Awesome. Do you feel slightly NewOpsed? Yeah, a little? You got a little NewOps on you? That's what we're working towards. And then the Forum Breakout. Did you learn something new from your peers? Get a question answered maybe? Yes, I'll sleep better at night knowing that. So we will be taking photos of all of these. They will be aggregated with other groups throughout the next year and ongoing until we decide this doesn't work, but I think it does. And then, if you want to tag your name to it, write your name on the board, and we'll make sure to associate your insights to that project for this event. Okay? We're going to close out in just a minute, and then meet me over at Big Easy. Okay? All right, so Jane, anything?
So with great knowledge comes great responsibility.
Uncle Ben.
There you go. So you are now NewOps evangelists. And this is really important because I don't know what inspired you to come here today, and we're really glad that you did. But hopefully you're leaving here with maybe a little bit of a different perspective of operations in a modern age. And so it's your job to take that message forward, right? Share some of the insight that you had today. Amy had some really fascinating insight this morning about careers. You heard a little bit more about site reliability engineering. You heard about containers and Kubernetes. And again, just enough little bit of knowledge. There's a lot of talk out there about no ops. I mentioned it during my presentation. And you might hear no ops is no job and no respect. And that's not the case, right? Operations is not going away. So if you leave here today, and of course we're going to go have beers with Josh afterwards, really take that message forward. And if you do that, then today was really a huge success. So thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Josh, for being an awesome MC.
Thank you very much. I couldn't have said it better myself. With that, adieu. Have a great evening, and hopefully we'll see you again sometime. Bye.